Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come rock with us. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. At ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. I am your host, Dino Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle. What is up, man?
I'm feeling great, buddy. I feel like this time happens a lot where I look at the football calendar and I think about the term international break with scare quotes around it. And I hear the word break and I got to think some of these players are like, break for who? It's not a break for them. And I will say, maybe selfishly, not so much of a break for us, but it means we got a lot of great football to watch.
Definitely not a break for us. We are doing double duty, triple duty, huge week of football. I really can't believe the sheer amount of international break football we get to feast on while the Champions League and domestic leagues take a breath. In Europe, we had the semifinals of the UEFA Women's Nations League. How about a little Spain versus Netherlands on one screen, a little Germany versus France on the other? We also got to watch the first leg of the Nations League relegation/promotion matchups where some of those small but mighty League B teams, Croatia, Serbia, Hungary, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, tried to topple some of the League A bronze medalists, third place finishers Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Belgium. These Nations League placements really matter, not only for this summer's Olympics, but also for the 2025 Euros and the 2027 Women's World Cup. So those were fun. On this side of the pond, though, we are waist deep in CONCACAF W Gold Cup action, and we're going to dive way into what we saw this week. Mr. Grand Angle, what a week of football. Where on earth do we need to get started?
I mean, if we're asking where on earth, I think maybe selfishly again, let's start in the old US of A.
America.
U.S. Women's National Team 4, Argentina 0.
Let's go.
It's hard for us to escape viewing women's international football outside of the U.S. Women's National Team prism, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it felt like a lot of the footballing world was watching this match. Everybody's kind of keeping a close eye of, has the USA's downfall been overstated? Is it even a downfall? Where are they post 2023 World Cup? So, Tuesday's 5-0 victory over Dominican Republic, DR is number 107 in the FIFA World Rankings. That was never really going to give anybody like hard data to feel comfortable going off of on the squad's progress.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fair to say, going into that match, Argentina was ranked number 31 by the FIFA rankings. We'll talk more about FIFA rankings later. They're not the end-all be-all, but they give you a decent gauge. So, Argentina, they're a fellow World Cup participant. This gave us something to chew on. And what I think it gave us to chew on is that USA started fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with Jaedyn Shaw. And I would like you to please walk us through what you saw, especially in those dizzying first 20 minutes of the match.
I'm glad we're starting here because, I posed the question a few weeks back when we were talking about Champions League. And I'm like, all right, U.S. Women's National Team, where's our Senior Gapset? Where's our Rosa Kafaji? Where's our Lily Johannes? We'll get to Lily later, especially with the Netherlands falling to Spain in the Nations League, while the old Stars and Stripes, just out here cooking all this CONCACAF competition, just saying. But I digress. Buddy, looks like our budding superstars were hidden right in plain sight. Olivia Moultrie, 2 goals against the Dominican Republic, which I believe were her first goals for the U.S. Women's National Team in just her 3rd appearance ever for the USA. Stats courtesy of USsoccer.com. And well, it turns out we've got to talk about that other absolute supernova you mentioned, Jaedyn Shaw. Let's go. 10th minute.
Yeah.
Shaw caught him sleeping. While a couple of Argentina defenders were busy complaining to the ref, Lindsey Horan takes a quick free kick, gets it to Shaw, who drives the ball in at a pretty wicked angle, and even more quickly slots home an absolute dart, like basically centimeters inside the near post. Really clever, really opportunistic, fast twitch, deadly accurate, incredible goal to put the U.S. ahead. And 7 minutes later, gorgeous cross in from Rose Lavelle. I thought this moment was really interesting. So the ball's heading Alex Morgan's way, who's got really good position. And side note, I thought she played really well in this one. We'll talk about that one later. Morgan's just kind of waiting on it. Shaw, on the other hand, attacks the cross with ferocity. Steps in front of Morgan like prime Deion Sanders, blasts in a one-timer, flawless in its execution. Argentine goalkeeper Laurina Oliveros, absolutely frozen. Not that it would have mattered. She wasn't getting anywhere near it. It was like smoke coming off the ball. 2-0 USA, 4 goals and 6 caps for Ms. Shaw, and felt like maybe a star might have been born on this night. What'd you think?
I think you're right. The game had a lot of eyes on it. We had talked about Jaedyn Shaw weeks and weeks ago during one of the friendlies. The athletic ability, the instincts. You talk about her getting in front of Morgan, and then the skill to put it away. I think that's indicative of a lot of parts of her game. To your point about the angle she had on her first goal, I love the fact that she's audacious enough to even try that. So that is super promising. That is super exciting. I'm going to throw you two comparisons. Players who I think Emma Hayes and her staff might be looking at Jaedyn Shaw and thinking of how she can play on this side. And you're not going to be surprised that if I'm talking about Emma Hayes here, I'm talking about two Chelsea Football Club players. What about a little Guro Reiten? What about a little Johanna Ritten-Kanerud in this game where
Hmm.
Shaw is out there on the wings, but she is absolutely, as we saw in their second goal, she can go into the middle. She can score. She can pass. She's super clever. She comes at you with pace. In the post-match interview on CBS Sports, the interviewer had asked Jaedyn Shaw about something that Twila Kilgore, interim USA manager, had said, which was essentially, we want to add some more responsibilities. In essence, we want to add some different things to Jaedyn Shaw's plate to kind of mix up the way
Interesting.
she plays. What I liked about it was Jaedyn Shaw's response was, well, I'm not going to get into all of that, but I'll tell you that I liked our plan. And then, I'm paraphrasing, but then she had basically said, like, I played well with my teammates, but I liked that Jaedyn Shaw was like, no, we're not telling you the new stuff that I'm going to be doing. And so I'm going to go back to
Hmm.
it. I just want to kind of get a feel for where you're at on the Reiten or the Kanerud comps. You have a dangerous, quick wing who can also score. Why not get her into those spaces? Why not move her around constantly throughout the match? Am I seeing something that's not there? Where do you land on this?
I mean, I feel like Wrighton and Cannerud sort of play pretty confined games actually. Like I think they're
Mm,
very dependable and they're super effective. Like when they go, I think Wrighton maybe they both kind of like sneak in a little bit, but it
yeah,
felt like in that first 20 minutes specifically, Shaw was everywhere. Where
that
she
is true.
she scores like from the left hand side, and then like even on the cross in from Rose Lavelle, she's kind of like shading to the right and then kind of sneaking back inward like towards the middle. So I'm not sure if they just were like, hey, wherever you want to go, wherever the wind takes you, like wherever you see a little space, you do your thing out there. So I think like I like the comparison as a starting point, but it did feel
Yeah.
like, I close my eyes and I try to, replay some of those Jaedyn Shaw plays, and they all seem to start and end different spots on the field.
Yes.
So it could be even, I don't know, maybe some LJ potential if we want to throw like a Chelsea comp out there.
Oh,
We'll
all
see.
right.
I think the audacity of the strike, when you brought that one up, the name that popped into my head was Diani,
Yeah.
who just is happy to like take a crack at it. We'll talk about her later as well. She's out there gunning, but she's also actually out there playmaking. She had a wicked
Yep.
cross, I think, or like kind of through ball into Roosevelt that nobody else on the field
Yes.
saw. Maybe 10 or 15
Mm-hmm.
minutes later, that I'm just like, holy shit! Like this is a computer out here. You
Yep.
check her age again. It's like, okay, yep, she's still 19. Pretty incredible stuff from her.
I'm right there with you, buddy. That through ball to Lavelle, that is absolutely as exciting as the rocket into the back of the net on her first shot. Once
Hell
you
yeah,
add that element, it's like, we are NBA fans. It's like a player. It's like Steph Curry, who's able to drill threes from 5 feet behind the line, but then he'll also take the ball to the basket, and you're just like, I don't know what to do here. You're a defender, and you are in the blender at that point.
yeah. No, there's nothing to do. Yeah,
And we're just
let's go,
cracking a beer
John.
because that's exciting, bro. Because
Let's
she
go.
can really, really fucking play. So let's keep it moving. So the first half, pretty great in general. USA goes into the dressing room. They're up 3-0. The link-up play. Here's another thing that I wanted to
Mm.
get your opinion on. So I feel like I'm going to name a lot of players who were out there on the pitch at one time, but I felt like I liked the look from all these folks. Like obviously Lindsey Horan, you pretty much know what you're going to get from her. You know what time it is. Corbin Albert, who I feel like we're going to talk a little bit about. I thought she played great. Casey Kruger playing right back. Naomi Girma, of course, Rose Lavelle, Tierna Davidson, and Crystal Dunn. They were just they were moving into the space. They had a good feel for where each other were going to be. They knew where they needed to be. I loved kind of the almost like the seesaw nature where you would see Kruger would push way, way up into the attacking third from right back.
Yep.
And then you would see the rest of the team just kind of instinctively sag back to make sure that they're protecting against the counter. Like, it just felt like this is a team that looked way more organized than we saw during the World Cup. And it's a team that had way fewer veterans than what we were seeing fielded in the World Cup. And that's not a shot at those veterans. I feel like we've made our feelings known. I feel like a lot of the post-match comments from a lot of the players who are like, yeah, we went in with a good plan. We knew what we were doing out there today. Like, I feel like there are some subtle things that we could take from those interviews that might give us some insight into how people felt. But I don't know, man. I just feel like there was a clear idea, and I like what you talk about, especially the first 20 minutes. It felt like the idea of those first 20 minutes, give the ball to Jaedyn Shaw. And then the idea for the rest was, let's play within ourselves. Let's play possession. What did you see in that, like, just offense after that offensive blitz?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Linkup play, which I thought really phenomenal in this one. Looking at this matchup versus the DR matchup, a lot more movement, more runs, better vision, more ball movement, just more fluid offense kind of from top to bottom. Against the DR, the press was there, but when we were on the ball, the offense, like, not super duper imaginative. I think as we advance against tougher competition, which, if you saw Brazil, Colombia, maybe not looking so tough, but we'll talk about that one later. Maybe we won't. The one thing the U.S. cannot be is predictable. And I think that's what really sunk them in the World Cup. It was like, oh, okay, and in any sport, men's, women's, doesn't matter. The sport doesn't matter either. If the other team knows what you're going to do, they know what you want to do, you're just making it really easy for them to defend what you have, right? The first goal from Shaw, speaking of being like unpredictable, perfect example of that. Quick free kick from an area where usually you might expect that, like, the 3-person huddle and then our main free kick taker, like doing all the angles and, like, all the calculations and shit. But instead, Lindsey Horan, boom, Argentine defenders kind of looking the ref's way. Quick little pass to Jaedyn Shaw, right in her path. Boom, she smashes it. And before anyone knows what happens, it's 1-0. And, like, it's early in the match. It's not like what we were in the World Cup where no plan, and, like, the later the match goes, the tighter we get, the more, it's not even risks, but, like, we're trying to make bigger plays that are low probability, so, like, getting a 1-0 lead against a World Cup team, like you mentioned, not a heavy hitter, but still a World Cup team, that had to relieve a lot of the pressure. And now all of a sudden you see much more free flowing, the link-up play you mentioned. So again, really encouraging to see real growth from this U.S. team. A pretty noticeable improvement, even just from the DR match a few days prior. I think we saw, like, learnings from that kind of roll into this one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you're Twila Kilgore, certainly if you're Twila Kilgore's agent, you should be looking around the landscape and being like, hey, everybody knows Emma Hayes has her hands in this now. Don't forget about Twila, though. If I was Twila's agent, I'd be like, hey, Emma Hayes is going to show up. And unless Team USA is paying an assistant a lot of money, who's got some money? Who has some money for it?
Chelsea's got an opening.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, what are we doing?
Barcelona, I don't know. Let's go. Let's make some calls.
Yeah, there you go. So Kilgore had, I thought, a really interesting quote after the match. This is courtesy of Jonathan Tannenwald. He's the chief soccer correspondent at the Philadelphia Inquirer. He is at the goalkeeper on Twitter. Awesome Twitter handle, by the way, Jonathan.
Love it.
Quote, I'm really pleased that we were trying to try things. I think we left a lot on the table tonight, but I have every confidence that we'll continue to grow as the tournament goes on, end quote. So I want to read into her words a little bit. I really am interested in her phrasing of, quote, trying to try things.
Love that.
I think it's a subtle nod at the squad looking at playing a more European style. They had a hyper-aggressive press in spots where there were 3-player, 4-player swarms on the ball at a time. I thought that was indicative of them being kind of doing what you've talked about in the past of, like, we know we have great athletes. Our athletes have been in a system for a long time. And, we've talked about Title IX and all this stuff. Like, we know that we develop really big, fast, strong athletes. Now let's play smart around that, use the press. At the same time, they talked a little bit about this, like, on the broadcast as well. But you could see Lindsey Horan and Corbin Albert, they were, like, switching off between playing like a number 8 kind of box-to-box midfielder or a number 6, a little more defensive midfielder. Like, they were kind of picking their spots, rotating, creating those different looks. You talked about Jaedyn Shaw. like being wherever she needed to be. She was on the left wing. She was on the right wing. She was in the center of the field. She was drifting back into midfield, wherever you needed her. I just think that's all a recipe for something very, very exciting. That if you have these very good young players, these strong athletes, a lot of big players, I feel like we've talked about on this podcast, but Dino and I, we lean toward the term that my wife Jennifer has given me, tall girl bias, where where you're able to score headers and you're able to defend headers. We have a lot of those advantages. And I'll just say, Argentina, they're not world beaters in the women's game. Their program in terms of investment and development, it's probably fair to say it's in its adolescence. But this was an exciting style of play from USA. And it was an exciting starting 11, I thought. And I think people should be encouraged. And I got to know, because I like a good overreaction. Am I overreacting?
Buddy, if it's even possible, and if this is a word, we might be underreacting.
All right, let's go.
This shit is lit. No coincidence. The two you mentioned, PSG's Corbin Albert started both of these matches against Argentina. Now we've got Lyon's Lindsey Horan in the 11 as well. I think in addition to a little sprinkling of European flavor into our approach, I thought the defenders you mentioned too, Germa, Davidson, Dunn, and Kruger,
hell yeah,
they just were playing smarter passes that got the engine running from deeper in the field. Again, I think about the World Cup too, and it was like a lot of just kind of like long balls, trying to switch like left to right or just go over the top and run onto it. And it was just like, oh, is this like the best that we could? This is the best that we have. Like, Horan's out there. Can't we get her the ball in some space and try to do something and let her be a little bit more creative? I loved how much Horan specifically was involved in this one.
Yes.
She was another one, just a lot of touches in a lot of different parts of the field. And she's happy to facilitate, and I think that's kind of like one of the best parts of her game. She's as smart as anybody on the pitch. She makes good decisions and she's tough. So fuck it. Let's get her the ball and let her go. Rose Lavelle, also awesome in this one. I want to rewind a little bit to Alex Morgan, who we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Alex might have received a little tiny bit of shade on this fine podcast in the past. I thought she played really well and actually fit super nicely into like the new look attack. It didn't feel like we were in the, all right, feed Alex mode. And instead, she moved really well. She attracted defenders everywhere she went. She's still Alex Morgan. She opened stuff up for Shaw and others. She also got on the score sheet with what can only be described as catnip to your boys, a looping header.
Damn right.
And then last thing, an interesting tournament twist that people have been talking about is the seeding. After the group stage, teams are going to be ranked based on tiebreakers. Top 8 will advance, with the top ranked playing the 8th ranked, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, so on and so forth. The tiebreakers are as follows. Total points is 1, 2 goal difference, 3 most goals scored, 4 lowest number of disciplinary points, and 5 they draw straws. I'm absolutely rooting for that, by the way. Let's draw some fucking straws out here. While the USA clinched their spot in the quarters with the win over Argentina, maybe there's some extra impetus for hanging another half dozen on Mexico, who's their next opponent. Make sure we grab that 1 seed. But alternatively, though, I kind of like where Twila's going with like some of the tinkering. I think there's still some stuff to uncover. But either way, we've got Mexico Monday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 Pacific. What are you expecting to see in that last group stage match?
I think you're spot on. I'm rooting for more tinkering. I'm rooting for more lineup adjustments. Like I don't want to minimize the importance of like an international tournament like this, but this is the time where teams in the league, if you're playing, and I'm not trying to disrespect Mexico here. They're ranked number 35 in FIFA's world rankings. They're not a bullshit team, but this is sort of the equivalent of, okay, I'm playing a team that I know I have more talent than. So let me just see, like, I'll put in my backup goalkeeper for this League Cup match or something like that. And so let's figure out where are the combinations that we need to play like some really aggressive winning football. So Argentina, I mentioned, they're number 31 in the rankings, in the FIFA World Rankings. To give a little context, Nigeria is number 34. Feels low to me personally. Mexico, I mentioned, number 35. And Jamaica, number 40. So these are the squads that we're kind of looking at in that range. But let me just say, first things first, Mexico, I think they're going to be in trouble in this one. Even when we do tinker with the lineup.
Tinker, no tinker.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I think Mexico, they might be fighting an uphill battle on this one. Although it always is interesting to see any matches played in California. Mexico has a substantial crowd at those matches.
Yep.
So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. But let me just go back to those FIFA World Rankings where we're talking about the context. Jamaica at 40? FIFA. That is way too fucking low for the reggae girls. You got to watch the games, bro. That's unfair. Mexico, USA aside, reggae girls, too low. Unacceptable.
We've got to make a call or something. Somebody's got to be accountable for that.
They made the knockout stage of the World Cup. What are we talking about?
Unbelievable. Yeah. You think you're taking Mexico against Jamaica on a neutral field or Argentina over Jamaica? Like, come on, man.
No way. Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, we will see. As mentioned, this one's going down Monday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. We'll be locked in. And quick turnaround for quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Those are going down next Saturday and Sunday. So we'll know our final 8, and the U.S. will be back in action again then as well.